All right, so I'm here with one of my favorite brand management publicists, Mr. Jelani Hill. We call him J Hill. Manuscript PR agency. J Hill has worked with many celebrities, like going back for I would say the last 2 decades. But his focus of interest has always been community and the success of those businesses thriving. So, Jay, tell us a bit about yourself or your background that led us to our now.
Yeah, so I got my start in the publishing industry. Of course, I'm a Charlotte native from West Boulevard, born and raised off of West Boulevard. My parents have had that home in Behringer, which is across from the Stratford Y, um, for a long time, since 1969. They were one of the first Black families to move into that neighborhood. Now, I'm not that old, but my brother is. But But yeah, so I grew up in Charlotte, spent a long time in Charlotte, and then I went off to school in Atlanta. And then while I was in Atlanta, I lived there for 10 years. In late 2003, early 2004, I started my first publication, which was called Atlanta Fever magazine. And so that was back when Mike Vick was playing for the Falcons and Lil Jon, the East Side Boys. I know you remember that time.
Uh-huh.
Was all over the radios and in the clubs. And so I had a great magazine during that time. I love publishing. I still to this day I love magazines and just flipping through them and seeing all of the beautiful images and everything. And then I moved back to Charlotte in 2006, and then me and my old partner we stopped that doing that publication, my old business partner, and then I started Celebrity Power magazine. And so for a long time, people in Charlotte knew me for being the magazine guy. I had Celebrity Power magazine, and so during that time, I used to do the Power Mixer. It was just the signature event of the magazine, and so I did that for a while. And one day I was coming out of the house and I heard this guy on the radio. His name was Attorney Ken Harris, and he was on the Warren Ballantyne show. And he was talking about how he worked with Beyonce's dad and Babyface and Magic Johnson. He had worked with him for 20 years. I was like, who is this dude? And he was like, yeah, I'm right here in Charlotte in the North Carolina Music Factory. And I was like, wait, what? And so I Googled him, got his information. I called him and said, hey, man, I have this magazine. I'd love to interview you. And he's like, sure. And so I go to his office and I do an interview and everything. And after the interview came out, the magazine came out, man, we just hit it off. We just came really cool friends. And he just kind of took me under his wing. This event, and I know we'll talk about the Power Mixer later, but like his impact on my career and my life is what we're talking about. It was social capital. I went to school in Atlanta, but like he went to Carolina. He was an attorney. He knew all these celebrities, and he had been a sports agent. Just all of the things that I imagined working on, he was doing it every day. And
Mhm.
so he took a liking to me. His wife and my wife became really cool, and so I was ended up being on his radio show that he was doing. We did all kinds of stuff, and so he asked me to do PR for Mike Winans Jr. And so I did all of the PR for that. I think you and I maybe like had kind of started doing some stuff together around that time, right?
We tried, and then something happened with him, and like, and we won't go into it.
Yeah. So around that time, that's how long you and I, of course, we've known each other a long time, but as far as working, like that's how long ago. And this was easily 2010 or something like that.
It
It's
was a
been a
long
long
time
time
ago.
ago. Yeah. And so anyway, to make a long story short, um, I worked with Ken for over 6 years. All of his media relations, I did it. Anytime he had a high profile case and needed to do media, I was the publicist that did it. And I went on to start booking clients all over the country, start doing setting up their media runs. So when they would go into markets like Atlanta or LA or Chicago or Houston, I would set all that up for them. And then shortly after that, around the pandemic time, I started doing uh, digital advertising, and so we do that for a lot of large events. And so, man, I would say over the past 2 years, I've just decided to be more Charlotte centric. For a long time, when you're from a city, you don't take it, you don't appreciate it. And so that's how I was for a long time. I was like, it ain't Atlanta. When I was in Atlanta, it was it was like this. And so I said, man, let me figure out what's going on in Charlotte. And so I just started to see what was going on. And then I just graduated from Leadership Charlotte, which is a wonderful program here in the city. And you learn a lot about Charlotte and its challenges and everything. And so there's this thing called the Chetty study that ranked Charlotte 50th out of 50 markets in economic mobility.
Mhm.
And that just sparked something in me to consider bringing back the power mixer that I know you want to talk about soon.
Okay, so that was your inspiration. We'll say that was your inspiration.
It definitely
Okay.
was.
So, and it had to be something else, not just because you don't just start something just because it pops into your head. So you had to see a need for it. So what stood out to you the most?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. So for a while, I was, let me say it like this. I'm a very spiritual guy, right? So I
Mhm.
don't, when things pop in my head, I'm a big ideas person. So for me, that's part of my gift. My gift is I'm inundated with ideas all the time. And
Right.
so for me, I have tons of projects and ideas and things that I want to get out. And, I have something I want to tell you about a little later relative to my health. But, you know, I was kind of thinking about the power mixer just a little bit. And what sparked it was that I was at an event. No, I was at a community meeting, and a friend of mine, his name is Brian McNeil.
Mhm.
I'm sure you know Brian,
I know Brian.
and yeah, and I was just in a community meeting, and he was doing like his thing. He was in front of the room talking to everybody. He was supposed to do a talk, and
Mhm.
he points me out and he just uses me as a reference about how great the power mixer was. And it was 12 years ago, right? And he was just talking about all the elements and everything that were at the power mixer. And I looked at the person I was sitting beside and said, it sounds like I need to do that again, huh? Because he really made it seem so awesome and great. And so I kind of left it alone. And then when I went through Leadership Charlotte and I heard everything about the Chetty study and social capital, that's when I kind of started putting it together. So to your point, it wasn't just the idea popping up in my head; it was also seeing a need. The last thing I'll say about this is that you know, this. Charlotte, when we were growing up, we always said, man, Charlotte's gonna be the next Atlanta, and Charlotte gonna blow up one day and be this big city or whatever. And we were like, it ain't happened yet. When is gonna happen? And so we're finally, I believe, in that moment where we're starting to see Charlotte become the city that we've all envisioned, right?
Right.
And so there's all these people moving here every day. I think it's like 100 people or something per day. It's crazy. And so um, I wanted to do something about this thing where you've heard the narrative plenty of times where it's like Charlotte's cliquish and
Mhm.
Charlotte,
Mhm.
Charlotte is finicky and that it's the good old boy network and all that kind of stuff, right? And so
Right.
what I noticed is that I just thought that was just black people saying that. And the more people I met that weren't black, they were like, no, it's like that on our side too. And so I was like, maybe there's an opportunity to do something. And the last thing I'll say is, man, I like to chill and be to myself. And I was like, man, I ain't worried about what's going on. But I just felt this need to do something. I felt like I could, and so that's why I'm doing something about
Okay, I love that. I
it.
love that for us.
Yeah.
So now before you start or go further in, because everybody doesn't know what economic mobility is and people don't know what social capital is. So can you
hmm
explain what those two things are?
Yeah. So economic mobility is the. I'm gonna read my definition. Economic mobility is the ability of an individual, family, or group to improve their economic status. So it's the ability to improve your economic status, and that's measured by your income.
Right.
And so, what you would want to happen is to be able to say, okay, because here's the deal: a lot of people are born in certain situations, whether they're poor or whatever, and of course, you want to be able to go get an education and make a better life for you and for your family or your potential family. And so, what a lot of statistics are showing is that that's not happening. People who are born in a certain area of town, they go to certain types of schools, and their income isn't changing. Either they're making something close to what their parents are making, um, or they're making, just not slightly higher or slightly better, I should say. Social capital is your network. You always hear this thing, your net work impacts your net worth, right? And so I'll give you a great example. I was talking about attorney Ken Harris. Ken Harris, man, you know, I didn't go to a 4-year school. You know what I
Right.
mean? I feel like I was raised in the streets of Atlanta as far as a businessman is concerned, and so that's how I got my education. But man, two moments stand out to me with Ken. So I don't know if I ever told you this. So when Ken and I were doing PR, I was doing PR for folks that he was representing. And so one time we went to Houston and we went to Matthew Knowles' office. And so I'm
Uh-huh.
sitting in Matthew Knowles' office, Beyonce daddy, right? And I'm sitting here and I'm looking at this glass case in his office, and it got all the VMA awards, the American Music Awards, the Grammys for Destiny's Child. I'm like Beyonce probably
For
sat on this
real.
couch I'm sitting on right now, right? And so like that would have never happened had I not met him, right?
Facts.
And then another thing, I'm a huge Carolina fan, UNC fan, basketball team. Uh, and one time we had to do some work for Coach Hatchell, who is the former women's basketball coach. I went to her house. I was like in her basement, and she got the huge Carolina logo on the wall. Like I'm fanning out inside. I'm trying not to like trip.
Tell
Like we're
that you're
supposed to be
still
working.
fanning out.
Yeah. And so my point is that him taking a liking to me and being cool and being a nice brother, it impacted my economic mobility. It impacted my income. It allowed me to have a viable business. If I have a viable business and qualified clients and quality clients, I'm able to reach out to my counterparts like you and be able to give you opportunities to interview great folks, not just give you a bunch of crap people that you might not want to interview, right? You
I've
know what I
got
mean?
my time.
Yes, right. But that all of that works together. All of that
Facts.
impacts us. The better interviews you have, the bigger your media outlet is. The better clients I have, the more high profile clients are. I have an opportunity to make more money because now I can charge more based on the type of roster that I have. It all works together. And so the fact that he was willing to do that is an example of social capital, and how we all have to work together and be okay with helping each other and supporting each other.
I'll tell you another thing that has to go with the social capital and economic mobility is when you brought or had a hand in bringing the WNBA wives here. You
Yeah,
know,
no, that was the NBA wives. That was the
NBA,
NBA
the
wives.
NBA
Yeah,
wives.
yeah.
I'm talking about the WNBA wives. I done called
There's
them
some of
out,
those too. Yeah, they
ain't
got some wives in there too.
it? So you done brought not just them, but you had Jada Pinkett Smith. You had a roster here, that is like when we speak about Matthew Knowles, that was back then. But
Yeah.
to talk about the talents that's going on now, you're still heavy in the pot with bringing that type of talent here or having
You
your
know,
hands on that.
yeah, you know what? It's funny. I'm getting chills hearing you say that because, some of this I've kind of practiced for a while, right? And what I'm saying is when you bring up, like, I forgot all about that event, but that event, people that, let's say someone, I'm sure people who aren't from Charlotte, um, they don't know about the Foundation for the Carolinas, which is like a huge foundation that's worth $1 billion, right? And
Right.
they have this big, beautiful location uptown Charlotte. And then you have Lala Anthony, Gabrielle Union, Jada Pinkett Smith,
Kathy
Steph-
Hughes.
yo, I'm talking about people you see on TV for real,
Right
right?
now.
And
Right.
I'm not talking about no reality show. We talking about on TV on the
Right.
major networks, right? And I said, yo, and I remember this. I'm gonna be real with you. When I
Oh,
said
Gail King.
Gail, Oprah homie was in the building. Oprah's homie, Gail King, was
Right.
in
Oprah number
the
two.
building, right? And so my point is, I remember submitting the media list,
Uh-huh.
and there was pushback.
I
And I said,
bet.
yes,
Hmm.
about the media outlets. And I
Right.
was like, listen, man, this is Charlotte. This is
Right.
a once in a lifetime. Like there hadn't been an all-star game in Charlotte since I was in 8th grade, and that was 30 years ago. You know,
Facts.
and I was like, no, you can't. We're not going to have people come to Charlotte, and we can't have folks who cover the city all the time not be in the building to take part in this. And so me fighting for that. Now that I hear you say that, that was social capital.
That was big. That was huge. I
So
still
yeah,
talk about that till this day. Although Gabrielle Union rolled her eyes at me on the red carpet. Look, but it even still, it's always a teachable moment. It's a coachable moment for you.
yeah,
Because even at that point, you were like, no, you got to go up there and you got to take the story. I didn't
yeah,
get no stories, but I got perspective. I got insight from that. But that
yeah,
was probably one of my best experiences in media was that night. So, and
man.
you did that.
I appreciate that, and I'm glad I'm going to pat myself on the back for that because I know how I felt when I wanted to cover something, and you know I remember submitting stuff to BET, and they were like, "I'm sorry, we full," or "Sorry, this, that, and the third." And I'm like, "Yo, man, y'all black, right? Aren't y'all black?" I'm a small black media outlet at the time. Like,
Right.
come on, man. Like, you know what this means for me, right?
Facts.
Don't do that, right? And so it means a lot, and that's why now that I think about it, even in this moment, I'm saying this to you for real. Like in this moment, as I'm speaking to you, you know how like you've been doing something, but now it crystallizes in a moment. You're like, oh, this is a part of my purpose,
Right.
right?
Right. Well, duh. It is part. I
No,
mean,
yeah, but it just feels so
you just
good
had your
right now,
aha
man.
moment.
Yeah, but I'm saying it feels so good to understand like, yeah, I've been doing this because you think you're doing it from a perspective of your own self, right?
Right, right,
But
right.
now I see the bigger picture of this and why I've been this way and how it all works together. So I'm excited.
Well, you're growing others up under your tutelage, if
Mm,
that makes sense. We've had many conversations, we've had many meetings one-on-one where you giving me tips on how to better build my brand, not to work for anyone else. And nobody, I mean, I have a couple of close publicist friends that'll say, hey, I want to see you grow. You were
yeah.
like, listen, where you want to eat, we need to talk about this. Because I'm sick of
Yes, yes,
that.
I remember that.
Right. So, and that goes back to the power mixer.
Yeah.
So you did this for me, but now you're making it a wide stage for other people to come in and gain some knowledge, not just your journalists, but just your common folk. We have a lot of, it's one thing that you said that makes sense. Charlotte has grown. It's unfortunate because it took me an hour to get through traffic today. I'm only
Yes.
15
Yes.
minutes, 20 minutes away from the job.
Yeah.
Um, but with the transplants, how would they fit into what you have going on with Mixer? Why should they be part of that?
Yeah, I think, to be very, very honest about it, I think having so many people move to this city is forcing the city to change for the better because you have people moving to Charlotte from all over the world, all over the country, and when they come into a town, they bring with them the way that things are done in their town. I've
Facts.
had conversations with plenty of people who say, I had to adjust to
Hmm.
how things are here in Charlotte and how business is done here in Charlotte. And
Right.
so what I hope to have happen is that um and I'm trying to speak plain, is that we don't force folks that come from out of town to adapt to a culture that
Right.
may be for some of us broken, because there's
Facts.
some people who like it just the way it is,
Right.
just to
Right.
be
Right.
honest about that. And I'm be honest, I prayed about that because you want to be, you don't want to you don't want to upset people so much that they feel like it's an issue or whatever or anything. And so for me, I just want Charlotte to be everything that I envisioned it would be when I was in high school and junior high. And when I would look at TV and I would see other markets and other towns or go to other places, like, man, why isn't it like that in Charlotte, right? And so I think I was talking to Mark Paris, who
Mhm,
is the founder of the Charlotte Center for was it for it's the Charlotte Center for Civic Engagement,
mhm,
for imagination and civic engagement. Mark, I'm sorry if I messed your name up, but Mark and I were talking about Charlotte's culture, right? And he's from Florida. He's going to be on the panel at the Power Mixer, and but he spent a lot of time in Boston.
mhm.
And I was saying, hey, when you go to Atlanta, you got certain ways, you got a culture there. You go to New York, there's a culture there. LA, Houston, Miami, there's a culture in these big cities. Like as I'm mentioning those cities, you're thinking about South Beach. You know what I mean? You think about New Orleans, you're thinking about Asian or Creole food, right? And I'm
Right,
like, well, when we think about Charlotte, what do we think about? What do people around this country think about?
right,
Right. And so what he was saying is that Charlotte is a city that is always becoming,
right.
and like it's an open blank canvas, and that when people come to the city, it's cool that they don't have to feel like they got to fit into a certain box or the culture that is in that city, right? And that they can feel like a welcoming feeling of having ideas, and helping create a picture of Charlotte that we all can fit into. And I
Mhm.
thought that was dope. I thought that was, a cool way of looking at it. So, not
I
sure
mean,
if that answered your question, but that's how I feel about that.
it did answer my question. I mean, like I go running at with the run club.
Yeah.
There's a lot of transplants there that you would
Mhm.
not think, okay, these people they're not even from here. This is something that they gravitated to, but in large numbers. But at the end of the day, meeting so many wonderful people there, I still don't know their backgrounds. And then they don't, it's like, wow, you do this, you talk to this person once they find out that I'm a celebrity blogger.
Yeah.
So when we think about power mixers, this would be the space where they would meet change agents and people that's probably doing some of the things that they're doing, if not on a larger scale. Uh, would you agree?
Yeah, I agree with that. And what we wanted to do, like I've tried to think about all my years of going to networking events, even before I had a magazine, when I was just a guy working in Atlanta. And when I would go to business events, when I worked at the Atlanta Business Chronicle. And I remember coming back to Charlotte and feeling like, yo, this is totally different. The culture is totally different than
100.
what was going on in Atlanta. And I keep saying this in everyone that I speak to. Like, I'm like, I hate keep bringing up Atlanta, but I can't help it. It's in me. And so what I don't want to happen, what happens in a lot of networking events is that, especially here, there are certain levels of networking going on. So, like, if you're a small business, there are events set up for small businesses to network,
Right, right.
right? If you're C-suite level, VPs, CEOs, all those kinds of folks, right? Like they network together,
Facts.
as opposed to everyone being in the room at the same time.
Right,
And it doesn't need to be that way. That, in my opinion, this is Jay Hill's personal opinion. I believe that is hurting the city.
right,
As much as wonderful as we are, I believe that that's hurting the city. And the statistics are telling us so. Like when you start looking at the data relative to economic mobility, that's what's happening. And last thing I'll say on this is that, like, there's a narrative that is going on outside of Charlotte. The
hmm,
narrative outside of Charlotte is one of the fastest growing cities in the country, and it's a great place for Black people to go and start family and have a business. Right,
right,
right. In Charlotte, now you have a study saying Charlotte is in last place based on data as it relates to economic mobility. So there's a real thing of living here and experiencing certain things, and there's a different narrative that's out there. And so to answer your question, I think the answer is to put everyone in a room and
hmm,
everyone be open to building relationships. Not that I only do business on one realm or
hmm,
one
hmm,
tier.
hmm.
And you know what I mean? Like it needs
Right,
to be
right,
this intersectionality, diagonal thing where it doesn't matter if Tawanda Blake, if T Blake is dope, that's all that matters. If she's
Right,
willing to
right,
listen and work hard, that's all that matters. And so if somebody's a CEO or a celebrity or whatever, all that matters is that she's awesome.
right.
Not that Jay Hill introduced T Blake to somebody, and that's the
Well,
only reason they're working with her.
that makes sense that that would happen though. So I'm just going. That would make perfect sense. So now, so we don't run out of time.
Mhm.
Can you tell our viewers who the speakers are going to be, panelists, and the location of the event and the date?
Awesome. So we've been very intentional. This whole thing is, now that we're going through it, it's turning into a social experiment, right? I've been using social capital to promote this event and to have folks be involved with the panel. So the power panel includes someone very dear to my heart. Her name is Elizabeth McKee. Elizabeth is the executive director of Leadership Charlotte. She has been the executive director for over 20 years. And so she's probably impacted over 1,000 leaders in Charlotte, like over the last 20 years. The wonderful, I know you know Davita Galloway from Dublin SWAT, who has an amazing trajectory from how she's built her brand in a creative space here in Charlotte. We also have Mark Paris, who I was mentioning earlier. He has an incredible event called the Ideas Festival that goes on during Charlotte Shout. I think he brings a great perspective as it relates to just being a transplant and how he's navigated to, I would say, the top of the top tier here in Charlotte relative to his business and organization. And then, of course, we got the freedom fighter, Kenny Robinson from Freedom Fighting Missionaries, who the proper term everyone uses now is that he was justice impacted. And so when he came home, he was able to build Freedom Fighter Missionaries. The city of Charlotte blessed him with $1 million to build affordable housing here. I've seen him sitting down with Hugh McCall. And if you are from Charlotte and you know who Hugh McCall is, he was the former president of Bank of America, one of the most powerful people here in Charlotte. And to see Kenny's trajectory and the strides that he's made, that is social capital in a nutshell, basically. So and of course, last thing on Power Mix, well, more things on the Power Mix. We're gonna have a live podcast so people can go on the podcast and promote their business. We're gonna do a vlog where we're gonna have like just kind of highlighting all the and recapping the event. We'll have gift bags, vendors there. I'll be doing business shout outs. So I'll be like, yo, that's T Blake from interruptedblogs.com. If you're a small business or you do this, that, and the third, go talk to her. We'll also do net weaving. That's me. You've been a part of this. If you're at the event, I'm gonna grab your hand and say, "Hey, who do you want to meet? Like, what's your business? What type of folks do you want to meet?" And we're gonna intentionally put people together and say, "Hey, T Blake, this is Jay Hill. Jay Hill, this is T Blake. You all are your counterparts. Jay's a publicist. You have a media outlet. Y'all should talk, and we let you do your thing."
I love the interactive portion of it where you're doing the networking because that can be very hard for a small business that don't know how to strum up that conversation with another business. So, and then you
I'm
break
glad
it.
you got that. I'm glad you figured. That's it. That's the main reason we're doing that because how many times you go to a room, you like, all right, let me see who I know in here, right? And you click up, and so I didn't want that to be an impediment, if you will, to people networking.
Right. I mean, I'm a chatty Cathy, so I just randomly talk to people. Can I take your picture? Just I've grown in my space. Let's just say that, or
Yeah.
that comes with age. Now, another thing is where is it going to be and what time does it start?
Yeah, so the event is July 17th. Thank you for keeping me on my job. So the event, the Power Mixer, is July 17th at it's from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. It is at the beautiful Junior Achievement of the Central Carolinas, which is inside of Camp North End. That is 1701 North Graham Street in Suite 100. And the
Period.
event is completely free. It's free
It's
to attend.
completely free, y'all. So don't like I think this is one you don't want to miss because we get invited to events where we feel like we don't belong in this space because these are not our people. So
Yeah.
this event is multicultural and full of different talents, I think. Just by the lineup that you listed is different talents. So
Yeah, and I want people to understand, everyone is going to be there. All types of businesses are going to be there. So don't feel like, hey, you know, if you're in the creative space or you're a banker, you're in corporate America, or you're a small business or solopreneur, like everyone is going to be in the room. The whole purpose is for having everyone in the room. Now, it just ain't gonna be a black event. It ain't just gonna. It's not just gonna be a white event or anything. It's gonna be everyone. It's gonna be Charlotte in the room, and we will be intentional. And this is about creating a culture. This is
Mhm.
about shifting the culture in Charlotte. And so I'm glad that the response that we've received is that people are like, man, I'm glad that you're doing this event. This is something that Charlotte needs. So we're excited.
Right. Get your virtual cards to get business cards together or
Yes.
your paper business cards and get
Yes.
on out there. I'm funny about letting people hold my phone, so you probably better be next thing you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
bank
yeah.
account, look, little cash app get missing. I'm be looking at my eyebrow
Yeah,
gonna be
yeah.
raised, but
I'm like, yo, let me scan that blink card right quick, bro.
so I will leave you with this, Jay Hill. I am proud of you. I support what you have going on. I just want to tell you, thank you for always fighting for my brand that was so small and got large over the years. But I know without doubts that I was one of those brands that you probably had to fight for when you brought those NBA wives to Charlotte. So thank you so much, my guy.
Yeah. No, you welcome. It was my pleasure. And I see myself in you. And I'm so proud of you for sticking with this. You know what I mean? I got out the game. You stuck with it. And so I'm just so proud of you and how far you've come. I see all of your interviews. I like every time you come across my feed, I like your stuff. I say, let me give her my like. Let me at least show
Thank
her that I see her. So, man, I'm proud of you too. I appreciate all your support over the years. Everybody that I asked for you to interview, you do. Listen, everybody ain't the same. So I promise, I appreciate you.
but we ain't gonna get into that. Thank you. So I appreciate you. What's your social media handles? Does the mixer have a social media page yet?
Definitely, we got everything. So the first thing, go to thepowermixerclt.com. That's thepowermixerclt.com. You can register for free for the event. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok, we're on YouTube. We have on all your social media. All you got to put in is the Power Mixer CLT, and you will find us. Also, go to Eventbrite. You can register for free as well.
All right. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you, man. I can't wait to see you.